What is going on, everybody? It is me again. It is HorrorFan34, and welcome to another video. And I haven't done one of these in a while. I've been lacking on the convention recaps and everything because this is pretty much the ideal definition of laziness. I keep putting them off, putting them off, putting them off, putting them off, and then before you know it, it's like way too far down the line. I'm like, shit. I'm a few days late making this one, but wanted to wait until I had a day off and things like that. So getting on to the video at hand here, this is going to be my recap video from Chiller. Of course, Parsippany, New Jersey, Chiller Theater Convention in Parsippany, New Jersey. I probably would say this is probably my favorite convention to go to. In terms of like the guests and things like that, I just think Chiller just always has like the best variety of guests because they get such a good chunk of them, and you just never know who it's going to be. I mean, this year alone, they've had John Bauman from Sha Na Na. They've had I'm trying to think of like who else they had. They had even in like years past, they've had Tommy Chong, and they have Molly Ringwald, and the list of the Sopranos, like a Sopranos reunion, Bam Margera. They've had Kevin Dillon, and they've had Christy Swanson the one year, and it's like Diane Cannon at this recent one that they just had. So like I said, you just never know who's going to be at this particular convention. That's probably why it's my favorite con to go to. As much as I really do enjoy going to the Monster Mania conventions and things of that nature, for some reason Chiller, though, just for some reason, it's just my favorite. Like it's just because of the guest list they always get. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're going to be doing for October later this year. So getting on to the topic at hand here on the video. So this is going to be my recap from the convention over this past weekend. This video is just going to be strictly autographs and pictures and things like that. Same thing as I always do. I'll show a photo of me and the celebrity, show a picture of them signing my item, and then of course the picture of the actual signed item. So I've met 4 people at this convention, so no pickups from the vendor rooms and everything. Usually I don't pick up anything from the vendor rooms at Chiller. This is just more strictly about meeting the stars and everything. Usually if I do get something from the vendors, it's usually Monster Mania from one of the tables, but that's pretty much it for pickups and everything. And plus too, I was saving up some money for pickups. Like I know Inner Space from Arrow Video is coming out. I think I just came out, I think, yesterday, so kind of leaning more toward getting those things like that and saving up money for other releases later this year, like from Kino. But anyways, so getting on to the video at hand here, getting on to the guests and everything that I met. The first person that I met was John Bauman, aka Bowser. This man is a legend. This guy goes all the way back to the 70s with, Grease and, Grease for Peace, as the Bowser character from the band Sha Na Na. And of course, at one point, he was a game show host. Hosted 2 game shows, the Pop and Rocker game, and of course, mostly known nowadays on TV and everything from the match game Hollywood Squares Hour, which he co-hosted with Gene Rayburn. But everyone, of course, knows him as the persona of Bowser from Sha Na Na. I printed out my own picture of him on the match game Hollywood Squares Hour, so I wanted to get him on there. John, a really, really nice guy, really funny, really talkative. I showed him the picture that I printed out. He really enjoyed the picture. I know he made a little quip. He's like, well, if I was more fond of Gene Rayburn, I probably would have asked for a lot of copies of this picture. So, because you hear a lot about those stories that Gene Rayburn was not really fond of working with John Bauman, which is a shame, and I kind of felt bad for John Bauman because as much as I really do love Gene Rayburn as a game show host, and may rest in peace, a legend, I know, like, in personal life, I know Gene Rayburn, I saw like some of the things that Gene did. Like I saw like pictures of him. I think like at charity event. I think like charity events are like where he was helping people out. I mean, I'm sure he did some good stuff in his personal life, and was just a really great game show host on the Match Game for many years, and just things that it was always entertaining to watch. As much as I really respect all that, it just seemed like he had a little bit of an ego to him, because he didn't like being the second, like kind of a co-starring host, because he pretty much that was what he was on the show. Um, I mean, granted, I wouldn't say like John Bauman was like the greatest game show host of all time, but he was fine for what he was. I never had a problem with John Bauman on Hollywood Squares. I will say I did like him a lot more on the Pop and Rocker Game. I kind of wish more of those episodes existed, which is actually what I talked to John Bauman a lot more of, was his time on the Pop and Rocker Game. He was telling me how much of a blast that was to work with, and getting to talk with the bands that were on there that performed in certain like little interstitials on the show and things like that. And and he really did enjoy talking about the Pop and Rocker Game, because that was kind of more, because him being in music and everything, that was kind of more of his element. So of course, he had a lot of fun hosting that show. So we talked mainly about that. But on the Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour, I never really had a problem with John Bauman. I thought he was fine as a host, but then it's just a shame that Gene Rayburn wasn't really fond of working with him, which is kind of a shame. But I've heard about that before, but it's kind of a shame that was the case. But John Bauman really enjoyed my photo and everything and things like that. So but that's pretty much all about John Bauman. Just a really nice guy. It was really cool to talk with him about the Pop and Rocker Game. So. And of course, with John Bauman, of course, you always had to, this was coming with him. He always does the Bowser posts that he always does and things like that. So that's no exception for this picture. So here is my picture with me and John Bauman. And here's a picture of John Bauman signing my photo. And his autograph on it. Okay, so moving on to the next person. The next person I met was Robert Wool. All of you know him, of course, as Alexander Knox from the Tim Burton Batman. He was also on the HBO show Arliss from back in the day. And of course, if you grew up in the late 90s, you know him as a frequent panelist on the Hollywood Squares when Whoopi Goldberg was the center square. He was a frequent panelist on that game show when she was on there, at least the first couple seasons. He was always on there when Arliss, I think, was going on at the time. But Robert Wool, really cool guy, really nice guy. Talked to him mainly about, of course, Batman, things like that, because that is his most memorable role. And it was just really cool. Like, he had, like, on his table, he had the original script, the transcript from back in the day, and he was, like, flipping through the pages, showing me, like, page after page of the original script that they had, and showing me all of his lines that he had. And it was just a really cool experience, like, us talking back and forth about Batman, and him showing me the original transcript, and, like, we were, like, reading it together and things like that. That was just basically our whole, like, 5 or so conversations, just talking back and forth, and he and him flipping through the script that he had and things like that. It was just pretty cool, like, just talking back and forth just about Batman in general, because I like talking about Batman. But anyways, that's enough with Robert Wool. But that's pretty much my story with Robert Wool. So really nice guy. So here is my picture with me and Robert Wool. And here's a picture of Robert Wool signing my Batman VHS. and his autograph on it. Okay, guys, moving on here. The next person that I met was easily the VIP of the whole con. I've been wanting to meet this woman for many, many years. I know she just got back on the convention circuit. I hope she does more of them, considering the story I'm going to be telling you about with her. So I hope I do see her again at another show, because I'll get to that in a minute. But the next person I met at the show was Megan Ward. I mean, she's probably best known for her role in Encino Man as Sean Astin's love interest. She's also been in PCU. I forget who was in PCU. I want to say that was Jason Schwartzman. I can't remember who was in PCU. It was Jason something. I think it might have been Jason Schwartzman. I can't remember. Correct me on that if I'm wrong. But also she was on General Hospital, and she was in a couple of the Full Moon films like Arcade, and I think Trancers 2 she was in. I could be wrong on that too. Don't quote me on that. But of course, I really wanted to get her for something for the Brady Bunch movie. She did have a teeny tiny role in the first Brady Bunch movie in a scene with Christopher Daniel Barnes, who played Greg Brady. You know, he says to her, "Hey there, groovy chick," and she's like, "Do I look like a yellow fuzzy baby bird?" So he's like, "You know, Donna, you need help carrying your books, and you know, I have a tap class. It's her story." You know that scene in the Brady Bunch film, if you know the Brady Bunch movie. So I really wanted to get her for the Brady Bunch movie. So of course I printed out a picture of my own of her and Greg Brady together in the scene. And Megan was a definite sweetheart. One of the most fan-friendly celebrities I've ever met at a convention. When I showed her my photo that I wanted to get her to sign for the Brady Bunch film, she absolutely was floored. She absolutely loved it. She was just like, "Oh my god, like this looks so good, the way it was printed out and how detailed it was and things like that." And then she was like, "I have so many fun stories I can tell you about Christopher Daniel Barnes." And so she told me this really cool story I had no idea about. So of course, you know, Christopher Daniel Barnes, who played Greg Brady, was also the voice of Spider-Man in the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. But apparently I had no idea, but Megan Ward was originally going to be the voice of Black Cat in the animated 90s Spider-Man cartoon. She was telling me about how she got to sit down and voice record with a bunch of the other actors during the time when she was about ready to be casted, but then she had to drop out to do other projects and things like that. And she was telling me about like how when she was talking to Christopher Daniel Barnes, she was asking or telling him about like they're doing this Brady Bunch movie that's coming out very soon. I think you would be a perfect Greg Brady. And then, ironically enough, he gets casted as Greg Brady, and then she has a small part in it as Greg Brady's love interest at school, basically, in the movie, in that one scene. And she was telling me also, like, you know, how she was supposed to have more scenes in the film, but they were cut out, which is a shame. And she kept on saying to me, like, over and over again, he was so perfect as Greg Brady. Like, he was so perfect. She couldn't stop gushing about how perfect Christopher Daniel Barnes was as Greg Brady. And she's like, that's just one of the many stories I have about the guy. She has a lot of fun stories to talk about when it comes to him. So that was a pretty cool story. Like, she was telling me about like how she was going to be the voice of Black Cat in the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. And then getting on to the point what I was making earlier, why I wish she's at another show one day. I told her that I'm going to be meeting Christopher Daniel Barnes later this year at Anime Con in Oaks, Pennsylvania, and he's going to be there. And she was like, she said to me, when you go meet him, ask him about the story that I'm telling you and see if he remembers it. And if he does remember it and he tells you about it, if I'm ever at another convention, come back and see me and then tell me. And I said to her, I promise you, I will make sure to ask him, and I got you covered. I will come back to you at another show if you're at another con one day, and I will tell you all about it. So it was just a really great conversation, things like that. Like Megan Ward, you know, just one of the most like I said, one of the most fan friendly people you'll ever meet at a convention. Just you know, just she was super awesome. And I hope she does more conventions down the road. She really was a total treat to me. I loved meeting her so much, and she was probably the main reason why I wanted to go up there was for her. And I was blown away. She was super awesome. So, anyways, here is my picture with me and the super awesome Megan Ward. And here's a picture of Megan Ward signing my Brady Bunch photo. And her autograph on it. Okay, guys, now we're moving on to the last person that I met at the show. The last person that I met at the show was Lorenzo Lamas. Of course, all of you know Lorenzo Lamas from the shows Falcon Crest, of course, Renegade, and he's been of course, Grease from back in the day, but I knew him mostly from the Snake Eater trilogy. If you know that little mini action franchise that he's known for, the Snake Eater films. I especially love the third one with Bam Bam Bigelow as one of the villains. So, and Lorenzo was a great way to end the show. Really cool guy. I remember the first thing he said to me when I shook his hand. He's like, "Boy, you really remind me of a really good friend of mine," and you know things like that. It's like anytime like someone like compliments that I look like somebody that reminds me of someone to them, like that's always a really good compliment. And I asked Lorenzo if he was open to doing quotes and all that stuff, and he was like, "Yeah, sure." He's like, "What do you got?" And I showed him my quote that I wanted him to sign for my Snake Eater film, and he got a good chuckle out of it. He's like, "That's my favorite line." And I was telling him about, like, I was kind of torn between this other line and the one line that I did pick, and he's like, I think you picked the right one. This is the better line for me. So he signed it, no problem, quote and everything, and I got to talk to him about what was it like working with Bam Bam Bigelow in Snake Eater 3, and he said, you know, Bam Bam Bigelow, you know, just, you know, was fun to work with. He said it was really entertaining to watch him perform as a villain, things like that. He just said, you know, and working with the guy that played his sidekick Cowboy in the movie said he was great to work with and things like that. He just said, you know, he just had a really good time doing the Snake Eater films and things like that. You know, just a really cool guy. Really laid back guy and things like that. Like this guy was just like it was such a great way to end the convention and all that stuff. So, and Lorenzo's picture was a selfie with me and him, and it came out really good because there was this light on the wall near him, and we got in front of that light, and it made the picture like probably even more high def and more better looking. And credit to Lorenzo Lamas for pointing that out and getting the picture the way it did. So, anyways, here is my picture with me and Lorenzo Lamas. And here's a picture of Lorenzo Lamas signing my Snake Eater DVD. And his autograph on it. And that is it, everybody. That is my convention recap video for Chiller Theater. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. The next convention I'm going to be doing a recap for is at the end of next month, May 29th, I think, and it's going to be for Philly Fan Expo. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed this convention recap. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. You guys take care.